Welcome to Section 420, Talkin Yankees. And we're less than a month away from players hitting the field in spring training. In the meantime, we'll give you the latest news and notes surrounding the team, the roster, the Yankees in general. Then we're going to switch into a Sweet 16 tournament, and I'm going to decide who are the worst Yankees. So the biggest news is that the Yankees will not be getting Garrett Cole, the starting pitcher from the Pirates. Actually, he's being shipped to the Astros again. So once again, the Houston Astros have defeated the Yankees. We don't exactly know the reasons. I meant Cliff Frazier was supposedly going to be included in the package, but then all of a sudden the talks got to one of the Yankees' top pitching prospects, Chance Adams, and I guess Cashman didn't want to let that go. So, no Garrett Cole. The Yankees are going to have to look in other areas for starting pitching. Now, one name you hear is Yu Darvish, who's a free agent. The Yankees can just buy him outright, not worry about trading for anyone. I particularly wouldn't want to go after Darvish. He is a phenomenal pitcher. However, he gets hurt all the time. He already has a lot of innings logged on his arm. And do you really want to commit 3-4 years, maybe 5 years to a guy like that? I wouldn't want to. You also hear Alex Cobb, maybe as a lower price option. That I'd be more open to. Or I'm just okay with the Yankees just going to war with the guys they already have for the first half. Let Jordan Montgomery be the fifth starter. And then just evaluate the team by the trade deadline. Maybe make a trade then, or maybe bring up a young guy like a Chance Adams who could contribute. But right now, I would not be shelling that money out for Yu Darvish like that. Now, I prefer not wearing my hat during the episode, but for some reason this morning my hair was very messy, couldn't get it down right, so I figured I'm going to put on the hat. And now I'm surrounded by these things. I have no idea what these things are. And now back to the Yankees. There's been talk of, dangling Betances out there as trade bait for something, but if all possible, I would like to keep Betances and just have the super bullpen. You're going to have Robinson back, Betances in there, of course with Chapman as the closer. I know Betances struggled last season, but he's still a phenomenal pitcher. 2 years ago, he was fantastic. And, bullpen, it's a year-by-year proposition for, maybe Betances thought he was going to be the closer. He gets shipped back to the eighth inning, maybe gets his head a little bit. He still has the stuff. He still has the tools. He can throw 100 miles per hour. He has a fantastic curveball. I wouldn't give up on him yet. And this, again, the way the game is these days with these starting pitches go 5 innings, I just rather have a super bullpen. I've given Betances another chance in 2018. Now, if he flounders a little bit, maybe by the trade deadline, then you could talk about moving him to get him a big deal. But for right now, keep Betances, keep the super bullpen. And I think Chapman will be better as well. He's now a full year removed from being abused by Joe Madden and the Cubs. I think he'll be better as well. And plus, even though the story never got out there, maybe him and Girardi were just butting heads a little more, and maybe there's some bad blood there. Girardi's gone right now. New manager. I think Chapman will be better as well. On the first off-season episode, I thought I made a very good case of Mike Mussina qualifying for the Hall of Fame. The Baseball Writers Association recently had their latest vote. Unfortunately, Mussina came a little short at like 72.4%. You need 75 to get in, so he's like less than 3% from qualification. Well, really what that means is that by next year he'll get in. So he'll have to wait another year. It's a little annoying, but I think we can give an early congratulations to Mike Mussina. Oops, anyone? Now, before you know it, March Madness is going to be here. So as a build-up to that, as a tribute to that, to try to mix in some Yankees and some basketball, I devised a Sweet 16 of the worst Yankees in recent memory. Now, worst doesn't mean just suck, because a lot of players have come here and sucked. It's kind of a combination of sort of expectations in terms of a performance. Could be just driving fans crazy, having a bad personality, or just flat out making the fans go nuts. Whatever it is, I've thrown 16 names out of a hat here. I've given some matchup. I'm going to break it down, and I'll give you, at the end, the worst Yankee. So leading us off, we're going to have Kevin Brown versus Carl Pavano. Now, Kevin Brown, hard thrower, but kind of late in his career, and Carl Pavano, who the Yankees picked up as a free agent. Now, if you remember Pavano, he got signed to a 4-year deal, but he was hurt for like 3.5 years of them. In fact, the worst was he was covering first base in like a spring training game, and he pulled his glute muscle, literally because an ass muscle caused him to miss a season. So drew fans crazy. A lot of people threw him nuts, and Kevin Brown equally underperformed. Even a bit of a head case. I remember his game against the Orioles. He came out and he actually punched a wall and hurt his wrist. Really an idiot. So like both of them really idiots. But I'm gonna have to go with Carl Pavano in this one. I mean, Kevin Brown, yeah, he was a disappointment, and he did pitch. He started Game 7 of that 2004 game against the Red Sox, which the Yankees blew the 3-0 lead. But Brown was kind of at the end of his career anyway. His back was given out on. Pavano was still in the prime of his career. The Yankees gave him a lot of money, a 4-year deal. So for the loser there, I'm going with Carl Pavano. Now back to some starting pitchers. Blackjack McDowell versus Jeff Weaver. Now, Jeff Weaver, the Yankees picked up in a trade. They had to give away Ted Lilly, who at the time was probably the better of the two, and he was good for a while. The Yankees probably, I'm sure they regretted that deal. And then Jeff Weaver was on the mound in the 2000 World Series down in Florida. Joe Torre didn't bring out Mariano, brought in Jeff Weaver in a tie game, and he gave up a game-winning home run, which would eventually cause the Yankees to lose that 2003 World Series. Jack McDowell, on the other hand, pretty good pitcher for the White Sox for a number of years. The Yankees picked him up in '95, had a decent season, but probably his low point is when he was getting booed off the mound. He stuck up his middle finger to salute the crowd in the way, and that image never really escaped their mind. And to make things even worse, '95 Division World Series Game 5, Buck Showalter puts him on the mound in a tied extra inning game, and he gives up the game-winning hit to Edgar Martinez, and the Yankees blow that after being up 2-0. So, of the two, I'm going to have to say Weaver, though. What the Yankees gave up to get him and kind of the promise he had when he was coming up with Detroit, I'm going to say Weaver, you're the bigger disappointment. You're the bigger, worst player. Kenny Lofton versus Raul Mondesi. Now, Kenny Lofton, for many years as a Cleveland Indian, tormented the Yankees. Good leadoff hitter. He would get on. He would steal bases. He would go first to third. He'd make a lot of diving catches in the outfield. Drove Yankee fans nuts. But then, 2004, the Yankees gave him a 2-year deal. It's like, great, now we finally got this guy on the outside. Except he wasn't the same Kenny Lofton anymore. Of course, yeah, he was about 13, 14 years into his career, but he only played like half the season, only stole 7 bases. Yeah, had one good moment against, I believe it was him and Hideki Matsui hit back-to-back home runs off of Hoffman in a regular season game. That was kind of dramatic, but overall, as a Yankee, he was a bust. And then later he'll go on and complain that Joe Torre didn't like him, and guys like Sheffield due to race reasons and things like that. Total bust for the Yankees. Now, Raul Mondesi, kind of a bit of a meathead, always a good slug with the Dodgers, spent a little time with Toronto, so the Yankees picked him up, figured they could, we could turn this guy around, but he had a couple home runs, but he just basically was out of shape and didn't look like he cared that much. So, out of the two of them, I was a little more disappointed in Kenny Lofton. A couple of second basemen. We have Tony Womack versus Chuck Knobloch. Now, Chuck Knobloch, the Yankees got at the beginning of the '98 season, became part of the dynasty team, what have you. Good leadoff hitter, but then something really got into his head where he couldn't throw to first base anymore. So here's a guy who was a kind of a gold glove type of defender. All of a sudden, he couldn't play second base anymore. Now, luckily, he never lost his bat and he was able to contribute, but this is like an all-star second baseman. All of a sudden, now you got a guy who can't play the field anymore. Tony Womack, on the other hand, he was the one who kind of tormented the Yankees in that 9th inning of the 2001 World Series, got a big hit off of Mariano, which helped, tear down that whole thing with the Yankees winning the 4th championship in a row. So this guy comes in as a kind of a bit of a hated enemy, and then he really doesn't contribute. Bats like 240, doesn't really do much. I know the Yankees kind of thought of maybe moving him to left field, but then the 2005 Yankees midway, they kind of make some transition. They actually dumped Womack, brought up Cano, and that became the rise of Robinson Cano. So of the two of them, I'm going to have to say Womack's the biggest loser, at least Knobloch for all his problems. He gave the Yankees a couple of championships. He complained. Womack, he tormented the Yankees 2001 as a Diamondback, then he came here and really didn't do much. Kyle Farnsworth versus Jabba Chamberlain. Now, Farnsworth and Chamberlain both threw like well over 100 miles per hour, but Farnsworth is always a head case. He bounced around to a bunch of teams, and the Yankees gave him a shot, figured they could figure him out. Turns out they totally didn't. He had a little glimpse to where he was a little good, but then he just couldn't throw strikes, or if he did throw a strike, it'd be like a 500-foot home run bomb. Jabba Chamberlain now, when he came up, he was amazing. But then we had the Jabba rules, and then that controls innings, and then kind of shifting back and forth from being a starter to a reliever to a pitcher to that. Now, he was on the 2009 Yankee team, and as a reliever, he just got worse and worse and worse, eventually got hurt, just never came back strong, and the Yankees kind of let him go. And it's kind of sad because there was a ton of potential with Jabba, but of the two of them, I got to say Farnsworth was worse. Next up, we have Jose Contreras versus Hideki Irabu. Now, Hideki Irabu was like the first big Japanese, power pitcher. He was going to be the next big thing. The Yankees were pumping him up like crazy. But he came here, he had one great start, and then every start got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. In '98, he did have a decent season, but overall for the Yankees, he was a bust. Steinbrenner even had to call him a fat toad. Now, Jose Contreras, he was supposed to be the next El Duque, the mysterious guy from Cuba, had a lot of good stuff. When he came here for the Yankees, he just didn't perform. Now, when he left the Yankees, went to the White Sox, he became a very good pitcher, actually won the World Series with them. But as a Yankee, he stunk. But given the two of them, I'm going to have to go with Irabu as the bigger loser there. So now we'll do a few thumpers. Shelley Duncan versus Chris Carter. Now, Chris Carter, who we just experienced this past season, who the Yankees dumped, thankfully. Now, Shelly Duncan came up a few years ago. He was kind of the Yankee farm boy, kind of a Roy Hobbs, innocent-looking type guy, and kind of reminded the Yankees of Shane Spencer in '98. Every time he came up, like he would hit a home run every sort of many at bats. So the fans got into him. He was pumped up, very lively character. Eventually, that faded out. And now Chris Carter, the Yankees picked up last season as a free agent. He hit like 41 home runs the year before for the Brewers. He came in, did nothing. Not only did he barely hit any home runs, he just did nothing. He was batting under 200, struck out in every big position. So I know Shelly Duncan's star rose high and then faded out kind of fast, but at least he gave us something. Chris Carter gave us nothing. So of the two, I'm going to say Carter is the loser. Next, we have A.J. Burnett versus Randy Johnson, the big new unit. Now, if you remember, Randy Johnson came here. It was kind of at the end of his career. Okay, he wasn't throwing 100 miles per hour anymore. But then there was all these excuses like, don't worry, as the weather heats up, he'll get more, he'll get a better fastball. He was still winning games. I think he won 17 games for both of his season as a Yankee, but his ERA was like 5. Like, this was not the big unit. And what was going on really is that he was in the National League for a number of years at that point. He was kind of getting better numbers against lesser quality hitting. And once he got back into AL East, it was reality again. He wasn't that same dominating guy. Plus, he was at the end of his career. He had back stiffness, neck stiffness, kind of annoying. In fact, his first day as a press conference, he actually threw a New York reporter around. So this guy just didn't fit in here. A.J. Burnett, on the other hand, came in as a free agent. I thought it was a good signing for the Yankees. Now, he did contribute to the 2009 World Series and did pitch very good in the playoffs, but he was a bit of an enigma. A guy could throw 9,800 miles per hour, but he would have control issues, and he just never really panned out as a Yankee, so they eventually shipped him off to Pittsburgh. But of the two of them, at least Burnett gave us a championship, so I'm going to say Randy Johnson is the worst of the two. So now it brings us to our second round, a couple of starting pitchers, a very annoying starting pitchers. We've got Jeff Weaver versus Pavano. Now, they've both been disappointing for different reasons. Pavano, because he just could never get on the field, and Jeff Weaver because he just underperformed what the Yankees had to give up to get him in terms of Ted Lilly, and of course Weaver giving up a game-winning home run to end one of the games of the 2003 World Series. So keep those factors in mind. I know the Yankees spent money on Pavano, but Weaver physically cost the Yankees a World Series game. So of the two, Weaver, you're more the worst. Now we have a couple of speedsters, Kenny Lofton versus Tony Womack. Now, physically, I meant the same type of player, the kind of leadoff type guys running and stealing, but in terms of what their performance, what they gave the Yankees, I think there was more high hopes of someone like Kenny Lofton. And Womack, I think he also got a little side road that the Yankees were trying to push Robinson Cano through the system, and basically he was a second baseman. Womack had his position, so kind of like Womack was going to be pushed out anyway. So I think it had less to do with his performance, more that they wanted to push Cano. And then on the other hand with Lofton, he just didn't live up to his abilities. So since I think Lofton had more control of the situation, I'm going to say Lofton is the bigger loser there. Now this is going to be interesting because we have a bit of a, what you call a starting pitcher versus a relief pitcher. So kind of different mechanisms to evaluate them on. Hideki Irabu versus Kyle Farnsworth. Now again, as I said, Irabu was overall a great disappointment, but he at least gave us, some hope, some dreams. I mean, you never really hoped anything with Farnsworth. You always knew he was a head case from all his years in Atlanta. Yeah, he came to New York, they tried to write him out, but at least with Irabu, he made you smile a little bit. And if you look at his stats for the 1998 season, it really wasn't that bad once they kind of shifted him down to be like a 4th, 5th type starter. So for that reason, I'm going to have to go with Hideki Irabu as more the worst there. And now as these brackets are slimming down, we have our first pitcher versus hitter. Randy Johnson, the big unit, and Chris Carter. Now I said overall Randy Johnson was a shell of himself when he came here, but at least he gave you something. At least in his first year, for example, he went 5-0 in the regular season against the Boston Red Sox, so he at least contributed. He took the ball as much as he can. Chris Carter came here and really gave you nothing at all. So as big as a disappointment as Randy Johnson was, Chris Carter is still worst. Round 3. Now the competition's getting even a little tougher. We have a terrible Jeff Weaver versus a terrible Kenny Lofton. Now, Weaver, for example, yes, he was a disappointment as a Yankee, but at least, you know what, he went on and then he pitched well with the St. Louis Cardinals and went to win a world champion and was very instrumental in doing that. And in doing so during that playoff run, was able to knock out the Mets. So I'll give him some kudos for that. Kenny Lofton, after he left the Yankees, really didn't do much. He bounced around a bunch of teams, eventually fizzled out. So I'm going to still, in that situation, still give the nod to Lofton. Another intriguing pitcher versus hitter matchup, Hideki Irabu against Chris Carter. You know, Irabu, he at least gave the Yankees a little something, not that much, and technically he gets a ring. He gets a ring for the 1998 World Series championship Yankees. Where meanwhile Carter was so bad that he's had to get released. So of the two there, Carter is still the worst. So this brings us to the big matchup, the championship. Who's the worst Yankee? So now we have Kenny Lofton from 2004 and last year's Chris Carter. Now, it took a lot to measure into this. You know, Lofton at least had a little okay numbers compared to Carter, which had like nothing. But again, in terms of expectations, I think you expected a little more out of Kenny Lofton, and he was only in there for 83 games. That means really, you know what, this Torrey saw his ability and just to say, you know what, this guy doesn't really have it anymore. Versus Carter, I mean, Joe Girardi, plus the front office was trying to push this guy as well, gave this guy as many bats and chances, and he failed time and time again. So in terms of expectations, I think people expected a little more out of Lofton. So I think we have to congratulate the winner, Kenny Lofton. He is the worst Yankee. Congratulations, Kenny Lofton. Well, I hope you enjoyed the worst Yankee tournament. Maybe you agree with me, maybe you disagree with me. Well, you know where to go. Go to the comment section. YouTube, Section 420, Talkin Yankees. Let me know what you think. Or maybe you have someone like Cecil Fielder that you want to argue with me with. I would prefer it if you agree with me. Well, the regular season is just around the corner. Take care.